don't think really any other cars have as much just sheer presence on the road as one of these things.
So these are getting old, and they're American, and they're sort of exotic, so mechanically, there's a lot to unpack here.
Oh. Now, we've all been in this position. It's time for your next car, and you're thinking, well, what do I need from this car? I know, it's an 8-litre V10, no roof, and a complete disregard for any kind of safety. Luckily, the original Dodge Viper has you covered. Or does it? Because what goes wrong with these? What are they like to live with and drive? How are they aging? And should you seriously consider buying one? We're going to answer all of those questions and so many more, but first of all, we need to wrap our heads around what is actually going on here. The original Viper was created to be the next great American sports car. Huge V10 engine up front, manual transmission, rear-wheel drive, simple engineering, and just the bare basics, all existing purely to heighten the driving experience. However, many seem to think that the 8-litre V10 powering these was just a truck engine taken from a Dodge Ram. That is completely incorrect. The Viper engine not only predates the V10 Ram engines by 2 years, the aluminium block castings and a host of other components were designed by Lamborghini, and that's thanks to Dodge's parent company Chrysler owning Lamborghini at the time. It might not be the most sophisticated engine out there, but it does have more in common with Italian supercars than it does work trucks. Now, we are just going to be focusing on the first generation Viper, and these were pretty much handmade, and they were improved and honed during their life cycle. And it was lucky they did update it, because the earlier ones missed out on some really high-tech features like a roof and windows. However, Dodge did fix this. Sort of. Removable hardtops were eventually available. However, the windows, well, they seem to be inspired by something that you'd attach to a tent when camping. Although this places it in quite a unique position when compared to its competition, or I should say, lack of competition. With pricing ranging from around $80,000 to about $140,000 here in Australia, nothing else offers these attributes. I mean, think about this for a second. If you want similar sort of exotic looks, rear-wheel drive, no roof, manual transmission, giant powerful engine up front, for this sort of budget, what else can you buy? The Lotus Elise or Exige arguably match the exotic visual impact, but they are focused on a very, very different driving experience to the Viper. Porsche's 911 and Boxsters are an option, although both are pretty vanilla compared to the huge flavour hit of the Dodge. Sure, you could buy convertible versions of the Aston Martin V8 Vantage, Maserati Grand Cabrio, Jaguar XKR, or even a Ferrari 360, but at this price, they will all be automatics and probably a little bit worse for wear too. So in a way, the Viper doesn't really have any direct competition at all. Actually, speaking of competition, wouldn't it be awesome if there was some way to get a whole bunch of different finance companies to battle against each other to get you the very best possible finance deal? Well, there is. Driver does pretty much exactly this. They exist to get you the very best possible finance deal as quickly and as easily as possible. Plus, there are no hidden fees, and doing so is going to have no impact on your credit score. Now let's talk looks and exterior. I don't know about you, but I don't think really any other cars have as much just sheer presence on the road as one of these things. Also, I know you think it's huge, but it's actually smaller than what it looks in pictures. In fact, it's only about say 7 centimeters longer and 6 centimeters wider than the current Toyota Supra. Looks way bigger, but. Also, if you're thinking, well, it's American, it must weigh a bloody ton. Did you know it's actually 39 kilograms lighter than the current Supra, and it has more power. And I have to drive it soon. Am I nervous? Yes. A few fun facts about the exterior as well. See the roll hoop here? It's not actually a roll hoop, it's just here to attach the roof to, and for looks. Also, notice how there are no door handles. Are they hiding under here somewhere like a McLaren? No, they're actually inside the car. Also, these headlights, were these made bespoke for the Viper? No, these were actually the headlights designed for the original BMW Z1, but that didn't happen. Now they're on a Viper. Also, is that a dog's penis? No, it's actually the spirit level to level the headlights. Also, is the beautiful sculptured bodywork all hand-beat aluminium or maybe super lightweight and incredibly tough carbon fiber? No, it's pretty much all fiberglass, like a boat. But this all brings us into what can go wrong with the exterior. More specifically, what can go wrong with these exterior panels. See, these body panels, they're no longer made anymore, and even used panels, they can be eye-wateringly expensive. This plastic cowling underneath the windscreen wipers, that can set you back as much as $3,000. But this beautiful, massive clamshell bonnet, expect to pay at least $10,000, and that's before shipping it to Australia and painting it. Also, because the bonnet is so big and heavy, it can slip out of alignment over time, let alone if you need to fit a new bonnet. Trying to get all the panel gaps to match up can be an absolute nightmare. And also, because the whole car is handmade, many owners have claimed that they just cannot get any of the panel gaps to actually line up properly. And that's why if you are in the market for one of these, it is absolutely critical to have a full pre-purchase inspection carried out, especially looking for accident damage and dodgy repair work, because lining all this sort of stuff up, it takes serious talent and time and money. Then there are a few reports that the doors can sag every so often, and there are just other sporadic reports of weird gremlins and electronic issues, stuff like that. But thanks to a lack of features on the exterior, not much else can really go wrong. And the small little things that might happen, like latches and whatnot, they're pretty easy to fix. Also, because the Viper shares a whole bunch of components with more mundane Dodge and Chrysler models, okay, sure, a new door might cost you the same as a small country's GDP, but everything else should be pretty affordable and easy to get. Plus, if you are buying one or if you already own one, you've got to join the owners groups or the forums we did to do the research on this video, and they are so incredibly helpful. Viper owners groups, thank you, you legends. Okay, now common problems and issues inside. You know what, honestly, not too many. There are a few wear and tear issues, especially in high traffic areas, especially this center armrest here. Just check that there's no creasing or even cracking on this center console. If there is, it can mean that the support structure underneath has broken. To fix that, you've got to remove this whole thing and re-fiberglass it. Massive pain in the ass. And then you've just got wear and tear issues. As you can see here, the plastic has all sort of faded around the dashboard and things squeak and make noises. Basically, you can tell that the engineers had interior fit and finish at the bottom of their priority list. Actually, just on all of the interior, I'll be honest, it does feel really cheap and nasty. These feel like the thinnest, hardest plastics known to mankind. And I know this is going to sound like an excuse, but that's what it should be. This vehicle was all about lightweight and performance. So yeah, this doesn't necessarily need to be luxurious. I mean, even the switchgear, it's all obviously borrowed off other Dodge and Chrysler models. The actual key, which is old school key, and the actual key barrel, it feels like it's, yeah, off an old Ram truck of some sort, but again, I kind of dig it. It adds to the charm. Again, this is supposed to be pretty much a no-nonsense performance car. It's okay that it's a bit rough. I mean, go and sit in an actual racing car. It is not a pleasant environment. This is like 2 notches above that. But also because everything is a bit cheap and nasty, oddly, it's also quite resilient. You've got to remember, this is 30 years old. It's not Benny, the guy that owns this car. It's not his daily driver by any means, but considering the age and it's exposed to, you know, Australia's sun and climate, it's not too bad. The leather on the seats is still really soft. Okay, some of these high traffic areas, I'm not even sure what finish this is, but it's all sort of scratching off here. The carpet on the doors, which looks like the same carpet that you'll find on old PA system speakers, it's getting a little bit interesting there, but and there's, as I said, squeaks and whatnot, but it's okay. Actually, just on Ben that owns this Viper, it's actually Benny from Benny's Custom Works. You might know him from Mighty Car Mods and Roadkill and a bunch of YouTube videos. We're doing a full interview with him on our podcast, so check that out. The link's down there somewhere. Now, as far as the actual internal ergonomics goes, I'm exactly 6 centimeters taller than Viper from Top Gun. It's interesting in here. First of all, you're actually facing the left-hand front wheel. You're not facing onwards at all. Like both the seat and kind of the whole position is kind of off to the side. It's like the opposite to an old Lamborghini where you sit sort of into the car. And seating position, it's comfy to a degree. So the seats are quite comfortable. I thought they'd be more supportive, but they're not. But then like my knee bashes up against the bottom of the center console here, or bottom of the dashboard here. And also the door is just here. It's so close, but then the passenger is quite far away because this center console is huge. It's just all it's very strange. And again, I know this sounds like I'm making excuses, but the strange, it just adds to the whole theater and the sense of occasion. Also, I've just noticed I seem to be sitting on the wrong side of the car for a steering wheel. It should be over there, shouldn't I? Now, as far as features go in here, yeah, not a lot really. You have a cassette player with a handful of speakers scattered around, and that's about it. Obviously, you could add Apple CarPlay and Android Auto with an aftermarket head unit, but don't do that because it will just detract from the whole retro 90s thing going on. One of the optional extras that you could get, which this car is fitted with, is air conditioning. However, apparently the air conditioning is about as powerful as an asthmatic child. So especially if you have the roof on, it just becomes a little heat box in here. does have air conditioning, but the air conditioning is shit. Now, it's at this point of the video that we would normally cut to a humorous voiceover explaining all of the safety features. This car doesn't really have any safety features. It does have doors and seatbelts, although the seatbelts are actually attached to the doors, so I don't know how safe that is. But besides that, yeah, it doesn't really have any safety features. I mean, there's no ABS, no airbags, no traction or stability control. How safe you are really comes down to your skill set. And I have to drive this soon. Am I nervous about driving it? Yes. Now, as far as practicality in a Viper goes, you've got a little glove box here with a very plastic sounding lid because it is plastic. You've got nets on the fronts of the seats, and of course, because it was the 90s, you have an ashtray and a cigarette lighter, but smoking is disgusting. Now, if you've seen our videos before, you know at this point I would normally be in the boot to show you how big the boot is. I'm not going to climb in here because I can't afford to fix anything if I damage it, but it's a tiny, tiny boot, about the same as an MX-5. Also, it's not lined at all, it's all just hard bits everywhere. Also, like most cars' bonnets, to hold the boot up, it has the little stick. Cool. Now, before we get into the driving impressions, I just want to say a massive thank you to all of the other YouTubers that have made videos on this car already, because seeing your hair fly about even at low speeds has inspired me to wear a hat. Thank you. So, am I nervous about driving this car? Yes. And that's how it should be. Cars like this, they should be terrifying, and once upon a time they all were. I mean, check out the actual Ferrari and Lamborghini logos. It's the picture of a wild animal. It fuels this image and perception that driving a supercar is akin to taming a wild beast. But these days, when you strip away all the fancy car design and the marketing and image bullshit, driving a modern supercar is actually pretty mundane. In places like Sydney, you'll see youths driving around in supercars with P plates on them, and that just completely shatters the whole image that you're taming a wild beast. Honestly, modern supercars are as easy to drive as a Toyota Yaris. The Viper, however, it is the complete antithesis to easy and mundane. Think about what a Toyota Yaris would be like to drive. This is the polar opposite. I mean, this is what a modern Ferrari or Lamborghini should feel like to drive. Honestly, it feels like it could just throw you into the wilderness at any moment, but weirdly, somehow, it encourages you to keep pushing harder to see when that's actually going to happen. Even at normal speeds, even around town, it bucks and shimmies around, it feels totally alive all of the time. Everything about driving this car can be a challenge. First of all, the steering, it is power assisted, but there's hardly any steering lock, so doing 3-point turns is a nightmare, but it does have a bit of feel to it. The clutch is like a leg press machine with about 300 kilos on it. The actual gear shift feel and gear change, think Mazda MX-5, but think the sort of the opposite to that. It requires genuine like muscle and accuracy. And then the power, it feels faster than what you're actually going, but then when you're driving around town, because the EFI system's pretty old, it sort of bucks and shimmies all over the place. And then you've got the challenges with placing it on the road. Because it is quite wide and you sit so far out to the side, you're so aware of just the amount of real estate this thing takes up on the road. The other issue with the vision, not just in these, but in any car, is if you can't see through the windscreen because of crappy wiper blades. Luckily, Wiper Tech has you covered. Hit the link below to get 15% off and free express shipping on honestly some of the best wiper blades we've ever used. And they're so easy to order, so easy to fit. They're awesome. Look, overall, driving a Viper, it's a bit like watching a Christopher Nolan movie. There is so much stuff going on. I'm not really sure if I'm enjoying it or not, but I am completely immersed the whole time. Also, like a Chris Nolan movie, I'm pretty sure that when this is all over and I can just stop and sit and let it all soak in and comprehend what just happened, I'm gonna want more, even though I'm still massively confused. You know, when I was researching this video and reading through other journalist reviews and watching other YouTube videos, stacks of these guys are complaining that, you know, the Viper lacks nuance and X, Y, or Z supercar is just more dynamic and they're not actually all that fast. Who gives a shit? The fact that this is so unique, it should be celebrated. I guarantee you, when you're behind the wheel, holding on for dear life, even if you're just reverse parking, no other car is going to enter your mind. This thing, it rocks. Or it rocks until you realize that the fuel consumption makes a fighter jet look almost economical, and you're concerned about it throwing you into the wilderness, and you're concerned what happens if something mechanically goes wrong with it. And speaking of which, what does actually mechanically go wrong with these? I can't tell you, I'm afraid, because I'm not a qualified mechanic. Jim is.
Some people criticise the Gen 1 for being comically simple, you know, the whole no windows and door handles thing, right? I mean, the whole car is just the bare essentials, but that's actually a good thing because there's way less to go wrong. And actually, historically, not really much does go wrong. Obviously now there's a lot of old car things you need to look out for, but most of them have been pretty well looked after because they're pretty special. But they have always been considered fairly reliable. Probably the biggest issue, and this is also related to age, is a head gasket problem. But the thing is they're a really old school pushrod V10 and they're super simple to work on, very simple. To give you an idea of how robust these engines are, the Gen 2 and Gen 3 versions, they went on to be super popular in motorsport applications, and twin turbo setups are making thousands of horsepower. Early on there were complaints of oil consumption issues, but I would say there's a lot of cylinders there and it's an engine design from the 80s, so I would say really pretty normal. There are some issues with the fuel system. The fuel pressure regs often fail, and the fuel filter's this weird design and the plastic clips just break, but there are plenty of upgrades available for that. Electrically, look, they are pretty much on par with every 90s Dodge, and you can take that any way you like, but they are pretty simple, so should anything go wrong, it's all pretty simple to fix. The T56 6-speed transmission in these, which has been used in literally millions of cars right up until about 2006, I think. Fun fact, it was actually designed for and first used in the Dodge Viper. I actually think that's pretty cool. Look, overall, a lot of parts for these are getting a bit hard to get, but they are a bit of a parts bin special. Apparently there's some parts even off a Durango as well, and a lot of the switchgear and a lot of the mechanicals can be found off other Dodges, and there's a pretty good community too, so if you're struggling to get parts, just reach out. There's some out there.
So after all of that, should you buy a Viper? Of course you shouldn't buy a Viper. You should buy something far more sensible, which is exactly why you should buy a Viper. In fact, if you're on the market for a weekend toy, stop researching other cars' Nürburgring lap times and acceleration figures. Those things, they won't make you laugh. A Viper will. Look, I know this all seems very crazy, but go with me on this. Why do we love performance cars? It's because they're fun. They make us feel alive. Very few, if any, other cars on the market can make you feel as alive as this. Every single time you drive it, it is an event. And even when you're not driving it, look at it. It's like you've taken the poster off the wall when you were a child and put it in your garage. Just maybe have about $20,000 set aside just in case you need a new bonnet and to pay for fuel and to top up your life insurance. Which, funnily enough, are all things you probably won't have to do if you buy one of these instead. But I've got a question for you. If you weren't to buy that or this, what would you buy instead? Let us know down in the comments. We'll see you next time.
They went on to become hugely popular in motorsport applications.
Let us know in the comments downstairs. See you down there.